What happens when one of the craziest superhero shows ever made completely fumbles its ending? After 5 seasons of chaos, or insane twists, and years of build-up, The Boys finally ended. And somehow, the finale managed to make Homelander feel weaker, Soldier Boy pointless, the virus irrelevant, and half the major storylines unfinished. The worst part, this didn't feel like a planned ending. It felt like the writers had 20 different ideas, and panicked in the last episode. Because when you actually break this finale down scene by scene, nothing really pays off. The marketing lead, the character arcs collapsed, and some of the biggest setups in the entire series were either ignored or straight up abandoned. So today, we're breaking down why The Boys finale wasn't just disappointing. It was a masterclass in wasted potential. 1. The rushed ending. Let's start with the biggest problem immediately. This finale feels rushed. Like, seriously rushed. And that's insane considering The Boys had 5 seasons to build this ending. The show spent years setting up massive endgame pieces. V1 was treated like the next evolution of Homelander. Soldier Boy was framed like the ultimate wildcard. And the soup-killing virus? That was supposed to be the weapon that changes everything. But when the finale finally arrives, almost all of it gets brushed aside in like an hour. Nothing breathes, major reveals happen, and then instantly move on before the audience can even process them. The pacing is all over the place. One scene acts like the world is ending, and the next scene feels weirdly casual. There's no sense of escalation. No feeling that this is the final chapter of a 5-season story. And honestly, that's the most frustrating part. Because the ingredients for an incredible ending were actually there. The show had all the setup. It just never committed to the payoff. Instead of feeling massive and unavoidable, the finale feels like it's sprinting through unfinished ideas trying to reach the credits. 2. The marketing was basically clickbait. But honestly, one of the most misleading parts of this entire finale happened before the episode even released. The marketing made it look like Homelander was about to become an unstoppable global threat. We got those insane posters of him floating in space, cities burning, the world looking completely doomed. It looked like the show was finally pushing Homelander into full god mode. Like he had completely snapped. And remember all those theories? People thought he was going to wipe out entire countries, start a global takeover, maybe even recreate those terrifying season 2 imagination scenes for real. But none of that actually happens. Not even close. The finale never reaches that level. In fact, Homelander barely feels dangerous compared to what the marketing promised. And it gets worse. The trailers and posters also teased massive comic-inspired moments. Butcher standing in front of a destroyed Vought Tower. The White House showdown. Suits filling the sky. It looked huge. Like the final war the series had been building toward for years. But the actual finale feels way smaller. Most of those shots either never happen, or they happen in a completely watered-down way. And that's why so many fans felt tricked. Because the marketing sold us the apocalypse. But the finale delivered something that felt weirdly restrained. 3. Homelander got nerfed. Now let's talk about the biggest issue in the entire finale. Homelander somehow feels weaker after becoming more powerful. And that makes absolutely no sense. Throughout the season, V1 was treated like the final evolution. The upgrade, the thing that would finally make Homelander completely unstoppable. The show literally framed it like humanity had no chance anymore. So naturally, fans expected the final battle to feel impossible. But then the finale happens. And suddenly Homelander loses half the abilities that made him terrifying in the first place. His speed feels gone. This is the same character who used to move faster than people could even react. But now he's slowly taking off like he forgot how flying works. Butcher manages to grab him. Ryan pushes him back down. And the fight never feels like the heroes are facing a god. It feels like the writers quietly nerfed him so the ending could happen. And that completely kills the tension. Because Homelander was always scary because he felt unbeatable. The second you make him look slow, confused, and physically manageable, the entire threat collapses. And honestly, it creates a huge problem retroactively. Because if this version of Homelander could be beaten, then what exactly were the last 5 seasons building toward? 4. Soldier Boy was completely wasted. But somehow, the handling of Soldier Boy might be even worse. Because after all the build-up, the show basically puts him right back where he started. That's it. No real conclusion. No major payoff. No final moment that justifies bringing him back into the story. After everything Jensen Ackles brought to this character, Soldier Boy ends up feeling like a plot device instead of an actual person. And the craziest part, the boys barely even react to him. This is supposed to be one of the most dangerous soups alive. The guy who nearly killed Homelander before. But during the White House chaos, nobody even seems prepared for the possibility of running into him. It feels bizarre, especially because the show spent so much time hyping his return. And then there's the biggest missed opportunity of all. Butcher never visits him. He storms through Vought Tower, but never stops for one final interaction with Soldier Boy. No confrontation, no closure, no emotional send-off, nothing. And that hurts the character badly, because whether you love him or hate him, Soldier Boy was one of the most important pieces of the endgame. But the finale treats him like leftover setup the writers didn't know how to finish. And instead of giving him a meaningful ending, they literally put him back into another sleep chamber, which honestly feels less like a conclusion, and more like the writers keeping the door open for future spin-offs. 5. The show abandoned its own mysteries. And this is where the finale really starts falling apart. Because so many plot threads just go nowhere. Take the whole of Father theory. For weeks, fans thought he was secretly poisoning Homelander's milk, which actually would have explained a lot. The hallucinations, the weird divine revelation moments, Homelander slowly losing control. It was a simple twist that could have tied everything together, but the finale never confirms any of it. So all those scenes end up feeling pointless. And instead of a deeper conspiracy, it turns out Homelander was basically just losing his mind on his own. Then there's Stan Edgar, which might honestly be even more confusing. The show spends seasons portraying him as this ultra-calculating mastermind, a guy who always has a plan. But by the finale, nothing about his storyline makes sense. This man was arrested, exposed, hunted, and somehow he casually walks back into Vought leadership like none of it ever happened. No explanation, no political fallout, no resistance. And the weirdest part, Homelander kept him alive the entire time, even after becoming completely unstable. Why? The finale never answers that either. And this is the recurring problem with the entire ending. The writers keep setting up interesting ideas, but when it's finally time to pay them off, they just move on. 6. A virus storyline went nowhere. And then we have the soup-killing virus, which might be the biggest wasted setup in the entire season, because the show spent so much time treating this thing like the ultimate weapon. This was supposed to change everything, the one thing powerful enough to finally level the playing field. But by the finale, it basically becomes background noise. The show never properly explains how the virus situation was even resolved. Huey somehow gets the sample out of Vought Tower, while being one of the most wanted people in the country. And the episode barely cares to explain how. It just happens. And that's a huge problem because this storyline carried so much weight earlier in the season. The virus wasn't just another side plot. It was the solution, the thing every major character was fighting over. But once the finale starts rushing toward the ending, the entire storyline gets shoved aside. And honestly, the missing scientist storyline makes it even worse. Remember Samir and his daughter? They were treated like major pieces of the season early on. But after episode 2, they practically disappear. No real resolution, no emotional payoff, no confirmation if they ever reunited with Stan Edgar. And we never even explore whether the daughter wanted revenge on Butcher for killing Victoria Newman. That's massive character fallout, and the show completely ignores it. At this point, the finale stops feeling unfinished, and starts feeling like entire episodes are missing. 7. Butcher and Ryan make no sense. And this is where the character logic completely starts breaking down, because the finale bends its own rules whenever it needs to. Take Butcher. Earlier in the season, the show makes it clear his cancer had evolved into this weird symbiotic relationship with the tentacles. They weren't just powers anymore. They were literally connected to his body. So logically, if the powers disappear, the cancer should still be there. Or honestly, Butcher should probably die with it. But instead, the finale basically acts like removing the powers magically fixes everything. And the show never properly explains how. It feels less like a resolution, and more like the writers needed Butcher alive for the ending. But somehow Ryan's storyline is even messier, because Homelander's relationship with Ryan changes depending on what the scene needs. One moment, Homelander is violently attacking him, almost beating him to death. And then later, he suddenly lets Ryan walk away after one emotional conversation. This is the same Homelander who murders people over bruised egos. But now he's weirdly patient and understanding. It doesn't match the character we've watched for 5 seasons. And the strangest part is Homelander acting shocked when Ryan sides with the boys. Why is he surprised? Ryan has been conflicted the entire season. He's watched Homelander spiral further and further out of control. The betrayal was obvious, but the finale frames it like some devastating unexpected twist. And instead of feeling tragic, it just feels inconsistent. Ada Genevieve was treated like it never mattered. But the most disappointing part of this finale might actually be what it does to Genevieve. Because for years, fans were told these spin-offs were important, that they connected directly to the main story, that the characters would matter in the endgame. But when the finale finally arrives, they barely matter at all. And the biggest example is Marie Morrow. She was hyped up as this potential Homelander-level threat, a character with powers dangerous enough to completely change the balance. But in the finale, she's basically reduced to driving people around in a truck. That's it. No massive role in the final battle. No defining moment. No payoff to all the build-up around her abilities. And it honestly feels like the writers changed direction halfway through. Because the show spent so much time making Genevieve feel essential, only for the finale to treat those characters like background extras. And that hurts both series. It makes Genevieve feel less important retroactively. And it makes the finale feel smaller than it should have been. Because imagine how much bigger this ending could have felt if all these storylines actually collided together. The boys, Genevieve, Soldier Boy, the virus, Homelander at full power. That should have been chaos. Instead, most of those ideas barely interact. And the result feels weirdly empty for a universe this big. 9. The finale never shows the aftermath. And finally, we get to the ending itself. And honestly, it barely feels like the world just survived an apocalypse. Homelander dies, and the show almost immediately moves on. There's no real sense of global impact. No massive public reaction. No chaos. No fear. No answer to what happens to Soups after this. Which is insane when you think about everything Homelander just did. This man tried to take over the country. He turned Vought into a nightmare. And nearly destroyed the entire system. So how is Vought still functioning normally by the end? How are people reacting? Do they still worship Soups? Do governments start hunting them? The finale never explores any of it. And that makes the ending feel weirdly hollow. But one of the biggest missed opportunities. Queen Maeve. We never get her reaction. After everything Homelander put her through. Seeing her watch his downfall should have been one of the most satisfying moments in the entire series. But the show skips it. And even the boys themselves barely get recognition. These people literally saved the world. And the finale treats it like just another mission. By the final scene, the show seems more interested in setting up the future than properly ending the story we already had. And that's really the core problem with this finale. It doesn't feel complete. It feels like a rough draft of a much better ending. And after 5 seasons of build-up, that's probably the most disappointing thing of all. A finale that forgot its own story. And look, this finale isn't terrible because it avoided a happy ending. The Boys was never supposed to end happily. That's not the problem. The problem is that the show spent years building massive storylines. And then barely paid any of them off. Homelander never became the unstoppable monster the marketing promised. Soldier Boy was wasted. The virus went nowhere. Genevieve barely mattered. And half the character decisions feel completely inconsistent by the end. What makes this so frustrating is that you can still see pieces of a great finale hidden underneath all of it. The setup was there. The characters were there. The tension was there. But the execution just collapsed in the final stretch. And instead of ending with one unforgettable final statement, the series ends with a bunch of unfinished ideas held together by shock value and nostalgia. Which honestly feels like the exact opposite of what made The Boys great in the first place. But maybe I'm wrong. So let me know in the comments. Did you actually like the finale? Or do you think this series completely fumbled its ending?
My wife, Becca. Homelander.
Stop. I'll suck it. Please. I'll do anything. You want me to eat shit? I'll eat your shit. I like you.